Welcome to Ask Gwen, everyone. This afternoon I have Janice with me, and so I'm going to let Janice take it away and explain more about what she does.
I'm Janice, and I'm the owner of My Body Couture. So I help people work on their health and fitness goals, and I primarily do that in a way that's all about feeling better in your body. So I work with people at every level. I have clients often who have a lot of pain in their body, and they've been to a number of different practitioners. And I really just help people come up with sustainable, non traditional plans to incorporate body sustainability instead of working on traditional fitness and diet plans.
Well, is this something you fell into, or was this something that you wanted to do as a child? I mean,
No, not at all. As a child, I was not athletic. I had zero interest in fitness. I did grow up with a really healthy mom who made me eat my vegetables, and I grew up on a farm, and so we grew a lot of our own food. So I did have that base, but I was really, really, really not athletic. In fact, when I was in junior high, we did a national fitness test, and I was evaluated as the quote unquote bottom 1%. So I am somebody who has had to come into it from the back door.
yeah.
So what happened was when I graduated from high school, I started running and it really hurt my body. I ended up with a knee injury. And so I went through a whole bunch of practitioners to try to find somebody who could help me. And they were all great modalities, but none of it ever actually solved the problem.
Yeah.
So I went on a basically lifelong journey to try to figure out what would make me feel better. And I worked through my own health concerns later. About a decade later, I had a lengthy period. It was about 5 years where I didn't feel good. I was sick all the time. My body was not performing at a great level. And I folded and incorporated that into my experience of teaching as well. So I think a lot of the health and fitness world comes at it from a place of we all love it. We all want to go to the gym. We all want to eat vegetables. And that's actually not typically true. There are a lot of us who maybe didn't come from that background or maybe have restraints or constraints. And there's reasons why we're not all doing that. So my message is really one of we can all take some steps to make our bodies feel great, no matter what our starting position is.
Well, that is wonderful. And where were you when my dad, when he did vegetables? I'm sorry, but he passed away from organ failure
Oh,
and
wow.
lung cancer.
Wow.
But by the time he was diagnosed, it was not good. But he would always say to my stepmom and myself, I've eaten one vegetable. One vegetable is enough for me. And I'm
Wow.
like, dude, whereas I'll sit there, I had a ball of rice today for lunch, and I had salmon in a ball of rice, and I had carrots in a ball of rice, and ground turkey, and so that's mine. I grew up with a mother who was big into vegetables too. And so, what do we do with the picky eaters that are adults?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not kidding when I say my
I know.
dad was a picky eater.
There's a lot of picky eaters out there, and I think that the nutrition angle that I work with is when push comes to shove, we all know that a carrot is healthier than a potato chip.
Yes.
But we also almost all know that a potato chip tastes better than a carrot.
Yeah.
So the picky eaters are actually onto something because food manufacturers actually make food taste better
Yeah.
when it's not plain vegetables out of the ground. So that's a very normal thing as a human. We like foods that have more fat, more sugar, and more salt. And that's exactly why food manufacturers add those elements. So I have a lot of clients who come to me who want to be healthier, but they're not really interested in taking on a vegetarian diet or going from I've eaten one vegetable in my life to everything that you eat being that healthy.
Yes.
And so what we do is we start where we are. And I have actually suggested to some clients that we incorporate capsules of vegetables that we swallow, so we don't even have to taste it. So if that's where we start, that's where we start. And the whole idea is that it shouldn't be punitive. We should actually start to feel better. When we feel better, we're going to look for more solutions. We always move as human beings towards what feels good. So,
well, for me, I personally gave up sugar when my dad was alive after losing my mom, because I remember now granted I have cerebral palsy and I may get diagnosed with another debilitating disability here in the next couple of days, but we'll discuss that when I get more information.
Sure.
And so, because I'm a 99% sure I have it, but I gave up the sugar because I remember the day I could not move. I could not move physically. I was walking up the stairs. My dad was upstairs in my living room. I could not move to grab a handle to move to the next step. Now, I thought, okay. And this was after my this was after my 29th birthday. 1 month after my 29th birthday. I'm like, and I was working out, I was e-biking, I was doing everything else. The only reason why I'm not working out now is because of everything that's going on. And I haven't been to a gym since February, but I still walk the stairs every day and do all that. But I remember 1 month after my 29th birthday not being able to move. So I thought, okay, well, it's not CP related because I'm active and I'm still keeping myself active. I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment and give up refined sugars. Do you know that when I did that, after a week, I felt better? And I'm like, bingo, that was it. Because the refined sugars every single day that I ingested them were swelling my joints. So that's why I couldn't move, on top of having a neurological condition.
And I love what you said, which is I'm going to do an experiment. So what we are often handed in diet and nutrition books is, let's do this big thing. So we go from 0 to 100. I'm not the hugest fan of paleo or keto, which have been the two big diet trends that have swept through the world in the last decade. But basically in those programs, we might incorporate intermittent fasting where we don't eat for 12 to 16 hours a day. Plus on top of that,
not good.
Some people, so it works for some people's bodies.
Well, it works for some people, but does not for mine.
Not for mine either. I tried it, and actually it was fascinating because I actually gained weight, which is the opposite of what people say.
Yeah, not for mine.
It does not work. No.
It does not work for me.
Usually those are stacked with, let's eliminate all carbs, let's maybe increase fats. there's a whole bunch of elements that are going on in those diets. And so quite often people will sort of fall off the wagon because they're very hard to sustain, but then they won't really know what element was successful for their body. And so one of the things that I counsel people to do is to make the change small. And
Make the change small.
small.
And I gave up, since giving up sugar, I have given up coffee.
Good for you.
I have given up wine. The wine was harder than the coffee.
I can see that.
Actually, it was the coffee that was harder than the wine because I wasn't thinking clearly, and after immediately when my dad got diagnosed with cancer, the day he got diagnosed, actually, my stepsister comes in, tells me the news, because I knew it was lung cancer the whole entire time. I know my dad inside and out. So I was making decisions in my own life back at the hotel, texting my stepsister, trying to get updates. And when my stepsister comes in, she sits down at on a bed, and I'm in office chair, and she goes, when the biopsy came back and it is lung cancer, and I said, oh, my response was, okay, let's do this. And like, I'm going to be a cheerleader to my dad. I'm going to drive back and forth to Denver if I have to. My whole thing was to take care of him and take, along with taking care of myself, along with managing my house, because he was now disabled and we didn't know what was going on. And her response back to me was, well, would you like a glass of wine? And I said yes, because my body was shaking mess. I mean, I was daddy's little girl.
Sure.
And daddy came home for 9 days, and one of the things my dad said to me is, one of the reasons why I'm not getting better is because I'm concerned about you. And so, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I took that glass of wine. I had one glass of wine, made me feel better, made me feel better. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, I'm going home to this new life. And turns out I last saw my dad on May 18th, and he died on May 19th. So when I came home, I was in this big empty house alone with help, and I finally, in July of 2019, I told my help that, you know what, it's time to wean me off wine and wean me off coffee. And my help agreed. And ever since then, I have felt better. My liver has felt better because it's not processing everything that it should. And I was getting hungover like there was no tomorrow. So that's why I gave it up. I gave it up to better my health. And people
love
like,
that.
you did what? And you did what, cold turkey? And people like, I need even my stepmom, goes, I need my coffee before you even speak to me. And this is my offline personality, my online personality, and I was amped up. I'm always in a good mood. I now granted I'm a human. I have my bad days, but they will. But I was amped up on coffee, and I can't imagine now how I was amped up when I was on coffee because um, I used to have a latte every single morning, and it's like, okay, coffee, good to an extent, but a glass of water is
Exactly.
better.
I think you touched on a number of really important things there. One is that we in our culture just think of wine and coffee as normal, everyday foods. We think nothing of it, and yet it's actually a struggle for most of us to eat those vegetables every day in that quantity. But I think we've built cultural rituals around coffee and around wine, and they're very socially acceptable, but they are drugs. And
They are drugs. Can you say that again, Nancy, for people in the back?
they are drugs. And
They
so
are
we
drugs.
are
I heard you, but I
medicated.
wanted people to hear that. They are drugs, people.
They are.
Wine is a drug.
It is.
Cannot drive under the influence.
That's right.
You um you can spill your cup of coffee on your way to work, and if it's hot, you are dealing with hot and wet. So coffee and wine are no-nos. And I still have wine at this house. I don't drink it. My stepmom knows that I won't touch it. And my stepmom also knows I won't touch Nespresso, Keurig, whatever
Yeah,
they
all
call
of it.
those things. And she's like, okay, if you want it, it's here. But I might go back to coffee eventually, but I will never ever go back to wine. Never, because my
And
dad
I think that
my
you
dad
touched on a great reason why people actually use these items, and it's because we actually want to be emotionally comforted by them.
yeah, and my stepmom says, well, if I don't drink, I feel like $1,000,000. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I just sit there and say, no comment, no comment, because I am waking up every single morning. My head is clear, my head is clear, and my emotions are clear. And you if you get a little too much of a drug in you, you could get nasty or you can get pleasant, and people use it as a comfort. And I know that there's a lot of other things that we can use as a comfort food or
yeah.
as a comfort. Thank you very much. And yeah, so okay, we talked about moving people onto a healthier diet
Yes.
slowly. And how do you feel about, because I know this was happening in the 90s. My own biological mother was on this kick of the Atkins diet.
Yes.
And yes, the Atkins diet was big in the 90s.
It sure was.
And so I remember the one egg, I remember all that. And so because my mom had to cook it for me too, but she said I'm going to try the Atkins diet. Her response was the only reason why I hire a personal trainer is because I want to eat anything I want. And it's
Sure.
like, Mom, okay, I love you, but at the same time, the Atkins diet, just like these keto diets now, they're not good for the body. We need to do everything in moderation.
Yes. Yes. I'm not a huge fan of a prepackaged program. And
Okay.
that isn't to say that there aren't certain ways that certain bodies will feel better. So it does make some people feel better to remove carbohydrates. It does make some people better to restrict certain elements of the diet. But ultimately, most of those diet programs are going to remove a lot of prepackaged foods. They're going to remove things like sugars and potato chips and other carbohydrates that maybe aren't that great for you anyways. Most of them are going to actually moderate your calories, and most of them are going to just narrow and restrict the foods that you eat. The issue with most of them, in my mind, is that we then get into a sustainability problem. So we can be on the Atkins diet as long as we're eating at home. But what do we do when we go to a restaurant? What do we do when we go to someone's house? Then there's a conflict of interest.
Yes,
And
there's a conflict of interest. And my stepmom does not like salt.
oh wow,
And
oh
it,
wow,
yeah, and it's very, very interesting
yeah,
because I, I love her dearly, but she has my aides prepare her food. They prepare mine, they prepare hers, um, and my aides are like, I can't do this. I can't do this with chicken. She will only eat
wow.
chicken and fish and salads. And whereas I'll eat anything you put in front of me, including a plate of vegetables. And it's like, I'm not a picky eater. I have no dietary restrictions due to cerebral palsy, but it's like, I don't like sweets. I don't like salt. I'm like, okay, you are putting, and my stepsister and myself tease her all the time about this. Um, well, like you are putting more salt into your diet than you think, and you say I don't like salt.
And so that's exactly what kind of happens. I had a client one time who told me that they did Atkins also in the 1990s and didn't eat carrots, but then there was some body weight they wanted to get rid of. And when I probed a bit further, they were eating potato chips as a snack. And I'm like, it's funny how we get sort of ideas of what is good and what is bad and what we should eat and shouldn't eat. So maybe it's salt, but then there's backdoor ways that these things find
Yeah.
their way into our diet.
There's backdoor ways. There's backdoor ways. So, Janice, for anonymity purposes, you don't have to mention the client's name, but what was your biggest success story?
It was actually on a movement client, and this was a young woman who actually changed my entire practice. So it was back at the beginning when I first started working with clients on movement, and I had a young woman who had had childhood cancer. And the treatment for childhood cancer, in her case, left her with joints in her body that no longer had proper blood supply. So in her early 20s, she'd already had both of her hips replaced, and the doctor told her she needed both of her shoulders replaced. So she came to me, and we worked together 2 times a week for 2 years. So it was a lengthy period of time and a large commitment. But when she left my practice, she told me that her doctor said that she did not need her shoulders replaced anymore. And the last time she'd had a steroid shot in her arms was the week she came to see me. And at that point, I realized how powerful non-traditional fitness techniques, in her case, I used Pilates and a technique called Yamana body rolling, and it rebuilt her body. It gave her body that blood flow and what it needed. And that turned everything on its side for me, because fitness in that aspect is no longer about looking good. It's not about running a marathon. It's literally about creating a body that you can live in. And
Now,
ever since then, that is the entire direction of my business. Let's give people one step up from where they currently are. And for some people, they're already high level athletes, but we can still step them up. There's other people like that woman where we prevented a surgery. It's amazing.
now I just saw something on screen. I just saw a little head pop in the Zoom. Yes, yes, he got caught. And yes, I have been a retired educator since March. Hi. And so my next question is, do you work with kids? I mean, you have a kid, and yes, he got caught, and yes, he wanted to see what mommy was doing. And do you work with kids?
I do. I actually, every spring and every fall, I do yoga classes for kids. So we learn the foundations, and we do it in a really fun way. So with kids, a big component to loving it is actually finding a way to make it fun, because kids don't want to do stuff that's not fun. Neither do adults, actually. And then my son already knows that if his body hurts, he just comes to mom and he asks me to roll him out and make his body feel better. So I do definitely work with kids. My son actually suffers from migraine headaches. And so when he gets a migraine, we can give him a little body treatment, and it usually helps.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
and so I think for him, it's, I've learned a lot just having a child, because kids do have a taste for sugar and for salt, and just educating him gently, because there are times when he's going to want to eat sweets and treats and not exercise and things like that. And so trying to make it fun, trying to make it part of a balanced diet, and letting go. I mean, summer just happened, so he had Caesar Slurpees. That's part of his diet, but it can't be the whole diet. We need vegetables, and we need chicken, and we need healthy food as well.
yes. And we need, and with what's going on right now, and the reason why little heads are popping into my podcast to you guys, is homeschooling.
Yes.
Homeschooling. So the reason why kids are popping into my podcast, which I love it, makes it with life here. But we're homeschooling kids.
Absolutely.
And some of us don't have the luxury of being able to homeschool their kids. They may hire a grandparent or cousin to proctor everything, or they may put it on the other family members. And so what do you suggest that parents do when they're trying to get their kids to sit at the computer, let's say starting at 8:30 when a typical class starts, and they're trying to get breakfast down their throats? How do we do that in a homeschooling sense? Because most of us have never homeschooled in our lives.
That's right. That's right. This is new territory.
Yeah.
I am a single parent. I'm a lone parent, so I'm alone with this little guy.
Yeah.
And you can see I know the audience can't see, they can hear, but he's sitting right beside me. And what I really notice, and most parents know this, but children will copy what they see. You can tell children to do something, and they're going to take more from your role modeling than they are from your instruction. And so if we're trying to get our kids to eat breakfast and we're not sitting eating breakfast, that's going to be a tough strategy. If we are telling them to go sit at their desk and doing homework, but meanwhile we're sitting watching TV, that's going to be tough. And if we're telling them to go exercise and do yoga, that's going to be hard. So a lot of the yoga that I teach in the young kids, it's actually family yoga. We get the parents involved. We get mom or dad to be part of the process. Because quite often what I do observe is a lot of parents who are putting their kids in sports, but then sitting on the sidelines chatting. So if we really want to have our children have that integrated, healthy lifestyle, we have to be doing it too. I wrote an article some months ago, it could have been last year, about how I had a number of clients that would tell me they would buy treats and Oreo cookies and things like that and sneak them in the pantry at night. So they know that their kids shouldn't be eating these items, but they were eating them in secret.
They do it. No.
Exactly. And so those healthy routines in our house, there's no food that is hidden. There's no food that is off limits. And if we're going to indulge, we indulge. If we're not going to, I'm not turning the lights out and shoveling things back.
No. And that's good philosophy I think we all should have, and I would love to have you guys do that, because my mom said, my stepmom goes, well, do you want birthday cake? And I'm like, yes, I want birthday cake. Of course. And she said, well, I won't eat it. I'm like, well, fine then. It's going to be my birthday cake, and I'm going to be honest with you. I want sugar on my birthday because that is my special day. And by the way, my birthday's in June, but it's like, okay, parents, you're telling these kids to go eat breakfast while you're shoving a bar in your mouth to walk out the door to go to your essential working job as an essential worker. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Yes, I think that very much what we do is what our kids learn from, and it doesn't matter what we say. And I also think it's actually really healthy and helpful if you indulge in treats with your kids, because at that moment when you would cut yourself off, you should be cutting the kids off, and vice versa. And it helps them learn what appropriate volumes are, because food is very social. It's very social. We sit down to tables with other people. We go to restaurants. It's fundamentally a socially connecting activity. And to try to make it something otherwise is not going to help your children. So actually helping your kids know when enough cake has happened, talking through your kids when they've overindulged. I remember a time when my son went to a birthday party and refused all food except the sugar. And the next day he told me he felt like he was going to throw up. So that was a great moment to have that conversation of, this is fundamentally, you have a sugar hangover.
Yeah.
So our job as parents isn't to stop them from indulging. That's part of it. And we should be helping them to understand limits and understand boundaries, but also to really do some great role modeling. And part of that, especially for mothers, is to actually share that experience with the child, not to just say, no, I'm on a diet, but you go ahead.
And and I wish that people would understand that when you're working 1,000 miles a minute, how do you expect your kids, and you tell little Susie to go sit and eat breakfast before class starts. How do you expect
Exactly.
little Susie to sit and eat breakfast before class starts? I had a friend slash aide who, and I love her dearly. She used to sit when she was working with me. We used to sit and have lunch together. Her and I. And that would make me, okay, one, stop what I was doing. Two, we had greatest conversations too. And so I think it's when you have these kids expected to be at their computers for 8 hours,
A long
and
time. Yeah.
you're you're trying to be shoving food down their throats. Well, if you don't model, you
Exactly.
you can't get anything done.
Health is a family endeavor if you have children. So I've had clients who come to me for health coaching, which is fundamentally nutrition work, when they have children, to learn how to incorporate a family diet, because that's what it becomes. And I know that I indulge in more sugar and more treats, but he indulges in more vegetables and more healthy food. And that's how that whole system works. We have to, it's a family unit, and we have to work as a unit. It cannot be, here you have a diet and you have habits and I have totally different habits and diets and
No, no.
modeling. So health is a family unit once you have a family.
Yeah, and as we wrap this interview up, do you have any questions for me?
What are your health goals in the next 6 months?
My health goals, uh, and people know this. People know this. My health goals are to, well, they don't know this part, but people know that I'm actually selling my house and moving, and my house goals when it comes to that is not going towards the sugary stuff
Great.
because it's not gonna be good. And so um it's not gonna be good. And I just want to stay on the healthy diet as
Okay.
long as I can. But when I get to my new house, I am definitely pulling out my e-bike and bicycle, electronic bike, and riding a bike path. That
Love
is
it.
the bike. The bike path is close to my new house, depending on, well, it's gonna be close to my new house anyway, kind of. But that's going to be my ultimate goal. And yesterday when I was doing Zoom, I figured that I should do that, get on a bike as soon as I can because I need to do it.
I love those health goals because they are things that I'm hearing, and this is what I help my clients with. When we have life changes, which we all do, to stay within a very simple goal, because our health really is a circle. When we have outside stressors of any kind, it could be family members, it could be job, it could be moving,
Yeah.
etc. Things get really out of balance, and then that feeds the circle. So I love the simplicity and sustainability of your health goals. I
Yes.
love it.
My health goals are not gonna be big. They're not gonna be ginormous, but my ultimate goal is when I get to my new house, when I even when I get to my temporary house, my ultimate goal is to pull out my e-bike and ride away because bike is great exercise,
It's right.
and that's what I that's what I thought of yesterday. I'm like, I I asked I asked people, I said, where's the closest bike path? I said,
That's awesome.
where's the closest bike path? And my stepmom looked at me like, okay, yeah, that's good. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do with my bike at this condo we were looking at? And they go, well, there's a shared bike room. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Well, it turns out we got a better opportunity. But I'm like, well, I need my bike. I need access to my bike. I'm not walking into a bike
That's
room
perfect.
really and grabbing my bike. And I need my bike. But I'm like, my stepmom laughed at me when I said, well, where's the closest bike path? And what am I supposed to do with my bike? And I'm like, she's like, okay, you're dead
But I
serious.
think that's the right thing to do, because where a lot of people actually fall off is that they don't plan how they're going to accomplish
Yes.
those
Oh,
sustainability things. And if we
yeah,
have no time or no ability, then we've got barriers. And
yeah.
those barriers for a lot of us make it so we just can't do
Don't
it.
do it.
We
Don't
don't do
do
it.
it. No.
This is
And
great.
I will be so happy to get on my bike again. And you guys had seen pictures of me on this bike, and I'm happy as a clam to be riding a bike again because I'm like, I, as I said, my stepmom looked at me like, you're dead serious about this. And I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
hello. After this move, one of the reasons why we're moving to this development where we're moving is because I want a bike. I want a bike path.
You get an A+ for having two very sustainable non-negotiables.
Yeah.
No sugar and biking. And that's actually where most people should be. And I would recommend that. Just have two very simple things that are non-negotiable. So whether it's taking a walk or eliminating sugar or what have you, something that you can sustain and maintain no matter what else is going on in your life.
No,
Love
yeah,
it.
no sugar during my move, you guys. And you guys are going to hold me to it. And Janice is going to hold me to
I
it.
sure
I
am.
mean,
I sure am.
no sugar during my move because, as they say, moving is stressful. And I
It
committed
sure is.
myself to no sugar as of when I was looking at houses and looking where we're going to move. I said I was standing there with a group of people, and I'm like, I'm going to commit to no junk food during the move,
I
and
love
it's not gonna be easy because it's gonna be stressful. But I to keep up my diet and to keep and then after the move, I'm going to do the bike. So that's my
That's
plan.
perfect. That's perfect. And you've done this absolutely well, because when we pick one thing to focus on, you have an 85% chance of succeeding.
Yes.
If we added another one, it
Yeah.
actually drops to 15%. So you have a perfect plan.
A perfect plan. And
You do.
Janice, where can people find you?
My business name is My Body Couture, and that's three separate words. The first word is my, M-Y. Second word is body, B-O-D-Y. Third word is couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So I'm at mybodycouture.com. I'm also on Facebook under My Body Couture, Twitter under My Body Couture, Instagram under My Body Couture. And then I write for Elephant Journal under my first name, which is Janis, Janis, last name Isaman. And I have a YouTube channel at Janis Isaman as well. So you can reach me on any of those platforms.
Any of those platforms.
Yes.
Yes. And I appreciate you sharing your healthy wisdom today. And you guys, you're going to follow along with me on this journey. And we're going to start this journey. It's coming quicker than I thought it was. But you guys going to follow me on this journey. And you guys are actually going to hold me accountable on pre-move, during the move, and then especially post-move, because post-move I'm really excited to get on the bike again. So
I can't wait to hear
I
an update.
I'm really excited to get on the bike again. So you guys are going to hold me accountable. Pre-move, no sugar. In move, no sugar. Post move, once I get everything organized, back on the bike. And so that's going to be my goal. And yeah, if I have accountability, I'll do it, you guys. So now that I put it out there on the podcast, people are going to be asking me now.
That's
Those,
right.
those who listen to my podcast, they're like, when did you accomplish your goal? And
Exactly.
I'm going to keep you updated. But I appreciate your support, and I definitely appreciate Janice coming on with her wisdom. And I will catch you guys later. Bye, you guys.